What if peace had a sound? Maybe it's the quiet rustle of oak trees swaying above a hand-laid stone driveway in Montecito, or the distant clop of horses echoing across 4 acres of golden hills, where sunlight dances on red clay rooftops. A place where a Hollywood legend trades scripts for silence, and the echoes of fame are softened by the hush of gentle wisdom. Today, we're stepping past the gates, into the stillness, into the story. And maybe, just maybe, into the heart of the dude himself. What does it mean to be born into the spotlight? To take your very first steps under the gaze of Hollywood's ever-watchful eye? For Jeff Bridges, the answer begins long before the fame, in a home filled with scripts, stage lights, and the scent of ambition. Born on December 4th, 1949 in Los Angeles, Jeff was the son of Hollywood royalty. His father, Lloyd Bridges, was already a silver screen icon. His mother, Dorothy, a writer and actress. The family home in Holmby Hills wasn't just a house. It was a living, breathing theater. And Jeff? He was cast in his first film before his first birthday. But here's the question. When your life begins in front of the camera, how do you ever find out who you really are behind it? Growing up, Jeff was surrounded by siblings, by stories, and by expectations. His older brother, Beau Bridges, was already making his way as an actor. And while the world may have seen a privileged child star, few knew the quieter boy behind the scenes. The one who sketched in notebooks, played with his dog in the garden, and waited up late just to hear the stories his dad brought home from the set. At 17, Jeff hit the road, quite literally, joining his father on tour with Anniversary Waltz. That was the moment it clicked. Not just the acting, but the connection. He wasn't chasing stardom, he was chasing truth. After high school, he moved to New York City and studied at the Herbert Berghof studio, refining his craft while living in a modest apartment. No red carpets, no special treatment. Just late-night auditions, cold winters, and a burning need to earn something on his own terms. Then came the breakthrough. The Last Picture Show, 1971. He was just 22, but his performance burned with rawness, subtlety, and something else. Stillness. An old soul in a young man's frame. Hollywood noticed. So did the Academy, handing him his first Oscar nomination. But what came next? Would he follow the fame? Would he take the fast road to box office hits and tabloid glory? Not Jeff. He turned left when others turned right. He said yes to roles that made you feel, not just cheer. From the boxing rings of Fat City, to the lonely circuits of Starman, to the glitchy brilliance of Tron, and the cult chaos of The Big Lebowski. Jeff shaped a career not on fame, but on feeling. And it wasn't just about choosing scripts. It was about choosing stillness over noise, peace over power. He wasn't chasing the next blockbuster. He was chasing the next moment of truth. But that doesn't mean the road was easy. There were flops. Heaven's Gate, for instance, was a cinematic disaster that nearly ended a studio. And still, Jeff stood tall. Because to him, failure wasn't the end. It was another color on the canvas. Then came Crazy Heart, a film about a washed-up country singer drowning in regret. And somehow it mirrored Jeff's own journey through the quiet aches of life. He sang, he bled, he healed, and in return, the world handed him an Oscar, not just for acting, but for being. But here's the twist. At the peak of his career, Jeff didn't buy a mega mansion in Beverly Hills or a yacht on the Mediterranean. He bought a ranch in Montecito. Why? Because while Hollywood had given him a name, nature had given him peace. And it was that peace, the horses, the hills, the silence, that would define the second half of his story. A story not of a star, but of a man who chose to live gently in a world that never stops shouting. So how does a Hollywood legend find silence? You build a home in Montecito. You let the oaks be your curtain call. You listen, not to applause, but to the wind. And that's exactly where we're heading next. Ranch in Montecito. What does a man like Jeff Bridges call home? Is it a grand estate with golden gates and glittering chandeliers? Or something quieter? Something that listens as much as it speaks? Welcome to Montecito. Tucked between the rolling hills and the hush of the Pacific breeze lies a 4-acre retreat that speaks in the language Jeff understands best. Silence, light, and legacy. Estimated at $8 million, this Spanish-style ranch isn't just real estate. It's a reflection of the man who chose stillness over spotlight. The approach is cinematic in itself. A stone-paved driveway winds through centuries-old oak trees, their limbs arching overhead like a cathedral made of nature. The road bends gently, not rushing, never loud, until it reveals the warm, low-slung profile of the home. Cream-colored stucco walls, weathered terracotta tiles, and wide, arching windows framed in dark wood. The architecture whispers old-world charm with a California soul. There's no grandeur shouting for attention, just quiet confidence in every corner. Step through the front door, and you're greeted by a living room that breathes. Vaulted ceilings lined with exposed wooden beams, oak flooring kissed by sunlight, and a stone fireplace that anchors the space with timeless presence. It's not hard to imagine Jeff here, barefoot, cradling a guitar, a glass of red wine within reach, the fire flickering stories into the night. To the left, a kitchen that balances rustic charm with quiet luxury, granite countertops, deep mahogany cabinets, and wrought iron lighting that casts a soft glow at dusk. An open arch leads to a cozy dining area, where double French doors invite you outside, not to escape, but to arrive. And what's waiting outside? A garden of silence. Manicured yet wild, the backyard flows like a landscape painting. A glistening pool bordered by stone, a spa tucked beneath olive trees, and a shaded patio that feels less like architecture and more like a whispered promise to slow down. This is where Jeff entertains friends, strums his guitar, sketches ideas for his next project. It's where solitude becomes a companion, not a void. And then there's the barn. But this isn't your ordinary carriage house. It's Jeff's personal studio, part workshop, part sanctuary. Inside, canvases lean against the wall, brushes wait in jars, and instruments hum with possibility. This is where the actor becomes the artist, where roles fall away and only creation remains. Why build a studio separate from the main house? Maybe because even in peace, we all need our own corners of chaos. A place to get messy, to start again, to be vulnerable. And Jeff Bridges has always understood the value of space, not just physical, but emotional. And while every inch of this property reflects the man who lives here, it's not just about him. It's about how he moves through the space, never above it, never apart, but with it. As if the trees recognize him, as if the walls know when he's hurting, or healing, or simply ready to breathe. For Jeff, this isn't a place to escape. It's a place to return, to family, to article, to self. It's not just a ranch, it's a compass, always pointing back to what matters most. And as the sun sinks into the Pacific, casting long gold shadows across the patio stones, you realize something. In Montecito, Jeff Bridges hasn't just found a house. He's found home. But what if that home had a second heartbeat? One that pulsed a little closer to the sea, a little deeper into history? Let's keep going. Estate in Hope Ranch. If Montecito was his refuge, then Hope Ranch was his echo. Another version of peace, sung in a different key, closer to the sea, older in soul, and deeper in memory. Tucked away in one of California's most coveted enclaves, Jeff Bridges' former Hope Ranch estate was no ordinary home. It was a timeless landmark wrapped in nearly 3 acres of coastal stillness, where eucalyptus trees swayed above hidden trails and the Pacific whispered just beyond the hills. Valued at $8 million, this property didn't scream for attention. It invited you, softly, to step back in time. Built in the 1940s, the home carried that rare kind of grace, aged but proud, elegant but lived in. A place where memories weren't staged, they simply happened. The main house offered 4 bedrooms and 4.5 baths, but numbers alone could never capture its charm. Step through its arched wooden doors and you'd find a world warmed by sunlit patios, arched hallways, and rooms that opened like chapters of a worn novel. The formal living and dining rooms were quiet celebrations of craftsmanship, from wood-beamed ceilings to French doors that opened onto brick terraces. One could almost hear laughter from decades past, still lingering in the corners. Off to one side, a private study and cocktail bar, a moody little retreat with velvet chairs and dark oak shelves where Jeff may have read scripts or written lyrics, bathed in golden afternoon light. Beyond the main house stood the guest quarters, a separate wing for friends, family, or perhaps solitude itself. Because even within peace, we sometimes seek our own islands. But what truly made this estate remarkable wasn't just its architecture, it was the land. Expansive lawns that rolled out like a green ocean, perfect for evening strolls or guitar sessions under the stars. A sun-drenched pool and BBQ terrace overlooked the horizon, a favorite spot for weekend gatherings, impromptu jam sessions, or simply soaking in silence. And then, the horse stables. A 3-stall barn nestled near the edge of the property, designed not for luxury, but for love. This was no Hollywood set piece. These stalls had the dust, the leather, the scent of real life. Jeff, a longtime horseman, could often be found here, feeding, brushing, walking beside these majestic companions like old friends sharing secrets. Even the land itself spoke in reverence. Trails curved around the perimeter, shaded by pines and pepper trees, leading eventually to the private Hope Ranch beach, accessible only to the few who called this stretch of coast their own. Can you picture it? Jeff walking barefoot along the sand, his guitar slung across his shoulder, waves crashing nearby as the weight of the world softened under the sky's golden hush. But eventually, life changes. Seasons shift. Stories find new pages. Jeff let go of Hope Ranch, not as an ending, but as a release. A graceful bow to a chapter that had done its part. Perhaps the home had given him something, a space to raise daughters, to heal, to grow. And once that purpose was fulfilled, he let it go, the way only someone truly at peace can. Yet the spirit of Hope Ranch still lingers in him, in the way he pauses before speaking, in the rhythm of his walk, in the way he chooses space, not to escape, but to expand. 2 homes, 2 sanctuaries, 1 soul. But of course, no story of a Hollywood legend is complete without talking about the fortune behind the freedom. So next, we ask, how much does a life like this cost? And more importantly, how was it earned? What is the value of a quiet life? Not the kind flaunted in flashing lights, but the kind lived slowly, with intention, where each dollar earned builds not just comfort, but character. Jeff Bridges has built such a life, and behind that soft-spoken voice and humble posture lies a net worth of $80 million. But you'd never know it unless you asked. There was no singular jackpot, no billion-dollar tech deal or overnight streaming empire. Instead, Jeff's fortune was the kind that grew quietly, layer by layer, roll by roll, like a tree that simply kept growing while no one was watching. He didn't build a private island. He didn't race yachts through Monaco. He built homes, ones that breathe. He invested in horses, art, family, and above all, space. Space to think. Space to heal. Space to just be. Because the true luxury in Jeff's life has never been what he owns, but what he's refused to chase. He's not a man who hoards. He's a man who shares. And where that sharing takes him next isn't measured in millions, but in meaning. Which leads us to something even more valuable than wealth: compassion. Because for Jeff Bridges, giving was never a footnote. It was the headline: philanthropy. What happens when a man with millions decides that compassion is the truest form of wealth? For Jeff Bridges, giving back wasn't an obligation. It wasn't a PR move. It was, and still is, a calling that speaks louder than awards or applause. It began in 1984. Amid red carpets and rising fame, Jeff looked beyond the velvet ropes and saw something that changed him: childhood hunger in America. In a land of excess, too many children were going to bed with empty stomachs. And Jeff couldn't look away. He co-founded the End Hunger Network, a nonprofit built not on guilt, but on action. Its mission was bold: to not just raise awareness, but to end childhood hunger in the United States. But how? By uniting voices, from actors and athletes to policymakers and parents. By producing educational content, pushing for legislative change, and reminding America that a full stomach is the first step toward a full life. Years passed. Fads faded. But Jeff stayed, steady and sincere. In 2010, he became the national spokesperson for No Kid Hungry, a campaign under the organization Share Our Strength. It wasn't just a title. He showed up. In schools, town halls, community kitchens, his cowboy boots walking alongside volunteers, his voice narrating hope into PSAs that reached millions. And when asked why, his answer was simple: because I'm a dad. And no child should suffer simply because we didn't act. But his compassion didn't stop at hunger. Jeff's heart stretched wider, to the earth itself. A passionate environmentalist, he has supported groups like the Amazon Conservation Team, working to protect indigenous lands and preserve biodiversity across South America. Not with headlines, but with hands, joining efforts to safeguard what most of us never even see. He's also a vocal advocate for mindfulness and wellness, believing that internal peace is a form of service too. Through his book, The Dude and the Zen Master, he encouraged readers to slow down, to breathe, to listen, not just to others, but to themselves. And perhaps that's where Jeff's giving becomes most profound. He doesn't just donate, he embodies generosity, in his time, in his presence, in his unwavering belief that kindness is not weakness, but strength, distilled. You won't see Jeff on the cover of philanthropic magazines. He doesn't chase the spotlight. He uses it, gently, to shine on others. Because in the end, what matters isn't the role you play, but the lives you lift. And Jeff Bridges, in his quiet, grounded way, has lifted many. But who is the man behind this giving spirit? The one who paints in the barn, meditates before dawn, and still holds hands with his wife after nearly 5 decades? To understand him fully, we must step beyond fame, fortune, and philanthropy. We must enter his private world. Personal life. What does it feel like to spend nearly 5 decades in love with the same person? To wake up each morning and still choose them, not out of habit, but out of awe? For Jeff Bridges, love isn't loud. It doesn't post. It doesn't pose. It's quiet, sacred, steady. He met Susan Jeston in 1975, not at a premiere or a party, but at a Montana ranch, where she was working as a waitress and he was filming Rancho Deluxe. He saw her across the room, a bruised eye, a radiant smile, and something else: truth. I couldn't take my eyes off her, Jeff once recalled. And I thought, if I don't ask her out, I'll always regret it. They married in 1977. 3 daughters followed, born in 81, 83, and 85. And through the chaos of fame, touring, awards, and aging, they stayed. They stayed when cancer came. In 2020, Jeff revealed he was battling lymphoma. He lost weight, lost strength, but never lost hope. By his side, always, was Susan. They stayed when tragedy struck. In January 2025, their family home in Malibu, the one inherited from Jeff's parents where generations had laughed, cried, and grown, was reduced to ashes by the Palisades fire. He didn't rant, didn't curse fate. He said simply, "We'll rebuild. Or maybe we won't. But we still have each other." And that's the rhythm of Jeff's life now. Not structured by fame or fortune, but by presence. He meditates daily, often at sunrise, sitting quietly in the Montecito light, breathing in stillness, breathing out whatever no longer serves him. He's deeply drawn to Buddhism, not as a religion, but as a way of being, a philosophy of flow, of surrender, of awareness. He spends his days painting in the barn, strumming guitar under the olive trees, walking barefoot across sun-warmed stones. Sometimes he rides horses. Sometimes he writes poetry no one will ever read. He reads. He thinks. He listens. And in those moments you realize Jeff Bridges is not just living. He's dwelling in life. He's embraced aging with grace, never hiding the gray, the wrinkles, the tremble in the hands. He wears time like a well-worn denim jacket, faded, honest, and loved. And even now in his 70s, he still takes acting roles, not for relevance, but for resonance. The old man reminded us that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it limps. Sometimes it remembers. Sometimes it simply breathes. At night, he sits on the patio with Susan, watching the sky fade into lavender and gold. They don't talk much. They don't have to, because they've said enough, in years, in touch, in silence. And maybe that's the most beautiful rhythm of all. Not the one composed for the screen, but the one that plays gently between two people who have truly lived. Jeff Bridges is no longer chasing. He's no longer proving. He's simply being. And maybe, just maybe, that's the truest kind of legend there is. In a world obsessed with speed, Jeff Bridges reminds us of the beauty in slowing down, of loving deeply, living gently, and listening closely. If his story moved you, subscribe for more journeys into the homes and hearts of those who live not just with wealth, but with wisdom. Your next story begins just one click away.